Interesting. You mentioned that 2004 was a landmark year for you. Many people think that 2014 was a landmark year for India when things, took a different course. So, why 2004, and what was it that that led you to uh, choose a different path for yourself?
So, am I audible? Yes. So, those who have lived through 2004 will understand the value of 2014 better.
Well said.
And since we were at a particular phase, so it's like this, I was keen on Mr. Vajpayee coming back to power for all sorts of reasons. Um, the India Shining campaign flopped like nobody's business. It fell on its face flat. And the coalition partners of the then NDA at the state level in Tamil Nadu, such as ADMK, lost all 39 seats and all 39 constituencies fully. And therefore, there were severe repercussions on the campus. Because at least if the state partner had done well, because you have to realize that campus politics in Tamil Nadu is extremely vicious. It's very vocal, it's vehement and vociferous, regardless of which Vichardhara you represent or stand for. And I'm not going to blame a particular side for it. And as someone who certainly took a serious interest in the larger public discourse and who had always been vocal, I had very uh, physical and personal repercussions, which I responded to as well. So I wanted to actually understand the root of the problem better. 2014, in that particular sense, I would say certainly represents a clear shift in the political Overton window of this country. But I've said this before, I don't wish to be the mouthpiece for any political organization because I would rather represent a particular cause than an organization. And therefore, as long as the organization works for that particular cause, I stand by it. But if that's not the case, I'm no more going to be the votary of that particular organization. So my position is very clear. So I'm not an organizational loyalist or a party loyalist in that particular sense. And I don't wish to be attributed with any such motives because particularly when the country doesn't have a decent opposition, which I think is important regardless of who is in power, there must be at least a cross section of people who play the role of the keepers of the conscience. And you can't constantly clap at everything that the government does. I know I'm speaking in Gujarat, I'm very conscious of it. But nevertheless, I think it needs to be said. So 2014, I think, is a very clear shift in the window. Now, there are people who suddenly found their spine after 2014 to speak up on these issues. But people like me have been doing so for quite a long time. In fact, there were times when we had to write under pseudonyms for the fear of being hounded in careers and whatnot. But nevertheless, we came out in the open and we started speaking about these issues because 2011 to 14, I think the churn had already started thanks to what was happening at the central level. Corruption, a host of issues, uh, polarization through appeasement, and so on and so forth. These were issues which had to be verbalized and vocalized. So I think 2014 marks a very clear milestone. I have no problems with it. But I just hope that this discussion with respect to the rediscovery of the roots of this country and civilization isn't limited to scoring brownie points at the political level between two different organizations. It has to be much more meaningful. It has to be more comprehensive. And that means the society needs to take a greater role or play a greater part in this particular awakening movement, is how I would see it. I'm just happy that certain options have opened up for expression of certain opinions which were previously not permissible. A few years ago, uh, I was offered or invited to write for a couple of mainstream publications in the country. I never asked for a space. I sent my pieces because they asked for it. But the moment they realized the tone and tenor was not exactly politically correct, I was given all sorts of administrative reasons for not publishing those pieces, which were solicited by them in the first place. Uh, they were never able to point out if there was any legal flaw. Was it provocative? Was it inflammatory? Was it obscene? Whatnot? Show me a legal basis at the very least. So it has come to a point now where the Indian Express has reached out and has offered a space saying, please write. So that column is started. So I would say that we have come a significant distance from 2004, but there is still a long way to go. And as much as there is a cause for hope, there is equally a cause for concern. And one of the causes for concern is that while the government gets quite a few things right, the government also gets quite a few things abysmally wrong. And there is a serious policy continuity in that particular sense between the previous government and the current government. And unfortunately, we don't have an articulate, sophisticated, clear-minded opposition to take up these issues. So I think it's in that particular sense, I think it's a cause for concern. I wish that either the government listens to its stakeholders in some of these issues, or at the very least, there are other political options which bring them to the notice of the public. Because after a point, it so happens that the quality of public discourse takes a hit when there is nobody to question. And that, I think, should never be the case. For a country like Bharat, with diversity of opinions and diversity of options, it should never come to a point that you're left with only one option politically. That should never be the case. And I say this as someone who bleeds saffron. I'm very clear about it. And despite that, my position is that the plurality of options is important. Let's look at it even this way. For my own ideological goals or whatever it may be, I would rather that everybody bat for my cause as opposed to me being reduced to just going after one particular political option to get the job done. So I am someone who believes in that kind of competitive politics. Let's hope, let's see what the future has in store.